And this week, the question we've been asking, and we thought this would be really relevant to you and your career. Do artists have a responsibility to speak on social issues?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. I think firstly we need to deconstruct what responsibility is.
Okay.
So if we look at each other as human beings, we need to look at the trend that we've been born into and the culture that we've been born into, which is a neoliberal era whereby the responsibilities and the interdependent nature of human existence is completely deteriorated to the point where not only do I not supposedly have a responsibility to anyone but myself as an individual, it's the concentration of the individual and almost the worship of the individual and the building of the cult of the self. So if we take, okay, what is responsibility? Responsibility means that I have a responsibility to consider your feelings and to consider your reality. It's about consideration. But then if we think about, okay, speaking on social issues, well, social issues are what determine our place and time. They determine what reality we're born into. They determine so many aspects of our life. So do we therefore have a responsibility to take an interest in a wider society, to be things other than just conduits for big business? Because that's kind of the other option now. And there's the presumption that if somebody is not speaking on social issues, then they're kind of apolitical and there is nothing political about it. But if you make a song where you feature Mercedes-Benz very prominently, or you mention it in the chorus, that is actually still a political statement. That's not. I'm not trying to cast blame on anyone. Or trying to, because at the end of the day, we are products of what we've been born into, and there's so much that's normalized. Now, do we have a responsibility to problematize these things that have been normalized? If we feel they're against the interests of other people, if we feel they're harming other people, you know, there's so much that we are told we shouldn't really have. We don't really have the right to speak on or to even think about. If we want to build as just relations as possible between each other, but not only between each other as human beings, but also with the wider environment and with the world, and seeing the environment as something which we are of, that we came from, rather than something that we need to conquer and push down, we have a better chance as human beings of existing for a longer period of time. You know, that's the case. What you have now is you have rapacious corporate power and fossil fuel companies which are essentially betting the lives of their grandchildren against short-term massive profit. So they're sacrificing potentially the lives of their grandchildren for short-term massive profit. Now, within that mix, where does the poet fit in? Where does the hip-hop artist fit in? Well, you know, one of the functions of the poets, and this is the reason why Plato in the Republic said you should banish the poets from the Republic, because in terms of upsetting social order, they have the greatest potential to do that, because they are the most free. They deal in imagination, they deal in utopian ideas. So for instance, you can achieve through music a depth of distance which you can't achieve in life. When Nas wrote Letter to the President, he was speaking directly to the president at that time, that was Bill Clinton, right? He couldn't speak directly to Bill Clinton at that time. That was before the depth of distance that the later presidencies brought in terms of rappers and political figures. So through our music, you can achieve things which just in real life you can't do. So why wouldn't you think, okay, these are the things afflicting people that I know and people from my background and people that I'm close to and family members, why am I not going to use this platform and this position, which in a way brings about an equalization of sorts? It allows the most quote unquote downtrodden person to speak to the most highly placed person in the society. If you talk to Prince William or Prince Harry, they do know, because they've met him, they know who Tiny Temper is, right? Okay, so Tiny Temper and artists like him, you know, even when I look at, say, my music, when I'm touring and I'm meeting people, I wouldn't stand a chance of meeting these people otherwise through the music. I literally wouldn't stand. I couldn't work in any other field that would allow me to meet as various a group of people. So if we look at what we're trying to do through hip hop, we do, I think, to a certain extent, have a responsibility to search for betterment as much as we can. And if one of those ways of searching for betterment on a wider level, in a more holistic, more encompassing level than just straight away me getting a lot of money very quickly and the immediate people around me getting wealthier and me getting wealthy. Like what can I really contribute to the betterment of people on a larger level? Do we cling to even the idea of states? Do we cling to this idea that we've become very accustomed to when it's actually quite a new development in human history? Especially when we live in a time where me and you will do this interview and it can be transmitted to someone in the Philippines like that. Okay, so do nations and borders still exist in the same way they did prior, number one, to the internet, but prior to recorded image? They don't. We live in a time of deterritorialization of all these things.
In that we can share information with each other. And
we can share information like that, and they don't need a passport to watch this.
But things aren't like when you were saying like we're living in a kind of neoliberal age, and that is true to 100%. But practically, we still need each other. Like people, completely, like the Grenfell thing, like. That big up that song that you did for that as well. But the Republic down there is an example of how in this day and age, even in this neoliberal age we live in, we still got community. We still got people who, you know what I'm saying, stand up for each other. Like, I just found it interesting when you were saying that materialism in hip hop is still a political message. I didn't even think about it.
We always talk about just many things still being a social message in hip hop music. When we've done the shows about violence, when we talk about violence in like underprivileged communities, and sometimes some people will call it glorifying, and it's just someone lashing out and reacting to the environment. So I would say that's still a social message and political content.
But also one point on that is that we are consistently bombarded, firstly through Hollywood, but secondly through the way rap music turned and was kind of commandeered by corporate power with victimless violence. So okay, if we listen to a song that talks about someone shooting someone, you don't hear the person that shot someone after that maybe was on the run, maybe went to prison, maybe was running for their life, scared of revenge.
From it
it's just a 1 minute of happiness, and we don't hear the person who died being in pain and excreting upon themselves and just barely surviving or not surviving or not being able to walk, or their family being traumatized for the rest of their life because of it. So and that's through Hollywood, number one. We are constantly bombarded with these images of really amazing stunts where a car flips over and the guy lands and the car sails off.
Literally. This is what Ed Skrein was saying, and we did an interview with Ed Skrein, and we took the conversation of violence in hip hop to movies, and we said, okay, because that's one of the first things people like defending hip hop always like to say is, what about the films? What about the films? And he pretty much was saying exactly the same thing what you're explaining here.
But it's also part of the same trend, and it's quite important that the big business has an interest in shock and awe and the spectacle and the spectacular and the hyperbolic thing. So when you take it and you look at somebody escaping miraculously from a very violent situation unscathed, it's like, wow, that's so cool. There's the wow factor in it. But then when you also take that on a musical level, and there's so much importance placed upon authenticity. So if you're talking about shooting someone, what you're also asking for people to do is to emotionally mutilate themselves. To emotionally mutilate themselves in the name of manhood, which is also now deeply interlinked with the ability to project violence onto another person.